This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this is part 3 of a webinar series with different modules that's going to talk about working with tax increment financing administration in the property valuation system. This particular segment is going to talk about how you go about setting up TIF areas in the property valuation system. This piece really goes quite well with part 2, which talks about setting up TIF taxing districts. So what we're going to assume in this part 3 is that you have set up new TIF taxing districts, and you also need to now work in TIF areas. So modifying TIF areas or setting up new ones, deleting them, what have you. So we're going to go ahead and talk about how you go through the process of setting up TIF areas. In order to work in the property valuation system, you do need to log into the online application. To do that, you'd go to what we call the county resource page, which is dom.iowa.gov/counties, and you'd select Submit Valuations, Budget, and AFR. There you will log into the property valuation system as you have in the past with an Enterprise A&A account ID and password, and your access should be the same as it has been in prior years. If you're a new user and you need access, please contact me. And if you have new staff members that need access, go ahead and contact me as well, and we'll get you set up. So what is a TIF area? A TIF area is a geographic area authorized to generate TIF tax revenue. So an authority may have one or more TIF areas. They can be various sizes. It really depends on how they're drawn up. Some cities merge by ordinance individual TIF areas into a single combined area. Consolidate, in other words, their TIF areas. Some cities have designated their whole city as a single TIF area. There's all sorts of different approaches. And so when looking at TIF areas, you just really need to closely read those urban renewal plans and then the ordinances that are adopted after that to make sure you understand the intent with TIF revenue generation. So in PVAL, you can create, name, and assign sequential numbers to TIF areas. You can associate TIF increment taxing districts with the appropriate TIF areas. And again, you would do that as defined by the ordinance of the TIF authority. So the documentation that you get from, say, your city is going to tell you how to set up these areas and the increment districts. If something is not clear from the documentation, please follow up with that TIF authority and try to nail down exactly what the expectation is with the setup of the particular TIF areas and tax districts. So in TIF, you can do a variety of different work with TIF areas. Like I said, you can create them, you can delete them, you can modify them and edit them. When you create a new TIF area, we do suggest you use some uniform naming conventions. For a city urban renewal, you do the city name and then the area name and the words urban renewal after that. So in our example here, we have Pella. Corridor is the name of the urban renewal area, and you'd end it with urban renewal. A county urban renewal, Benton County, Becca urban renewal. If there was a jobs training TIF, which there's not very many of those being created at this time, you'd enter the company name and the words job training. So again, using those uniform naming conventions helps to create consistency, not only within the names within your county, but also statewide as people look from county to county at the different TIF areas. So one of the things you can do, of course, is to modify existing TIF areas. You may need to work with areas that already exist in the system to edit names or to add or delete taxing district associations from them. So in order to modify a TIF area, you would go to TIF areas on the left-hand navigation, and then that's going to pull up for you all of the TIF areas in the system that exist in that year, right? So it's going to list them all, area name, and then it's going to have a variety of different actions you can take for those existing areas, right? So, and here's where our action buttons are. And the actions are you can edit an area, you can manage its associations, or you can delete or remove an area. So let's first talk about editing an area. So we would come to the TIF area screen. If we know we want to edit a particular area, you can click on it. If you have a lot of areas in your county, you can certainly do a search by typing the area name or the area number into these boxes here. But once you know, or you can see whichever TIF area you need to edit, you click on the edit button. And there's not a lot you can actually edit within the area itself, but you can edit the name. So if you have a situation where you need to go in and you need to correct a name or modify it in some way, then this is where you'd go. TIF area, edit, and you can edit here in this box and do a save. The other type of work you can do with existing TIF areas is you can manage the associations for those areas. So you can go in, you can open up a TIF area, you can see which increment districts are currently associated with it. You can unassign some of those if you need to. If you had created a new TIF taxing district increment, base and increment pair, and you needed to associate that increment with an existing existing TIF area because this was an amendment to an existing area, you would use this manage TIF area associations to assign that new taxing district you created to an existing area. And this is really primarily what this is used for with existing areas, is to add those new TIF increment taxing districts that you created because there was an amendment to an existing area. So you'd go to Manage TIF Area Associations when you have selected the TIF area that you know you need to work with. And this is going to display for you all the existing associations. Like this is all the TIF increment districts that are currently associated with this particular area. So you say, okay, well, I know, I created a new increment district because it was an amendment, but it's just an amendment to this existing area. I'm not changing the area. So you come up here in the search button and you start to do a search, and it's going to pull up for you any new increment districts that you created. You would click the add button, and that will then associate it to this existing area. Deleting a TIF area, when you go to delete an area, so say it's run its course and it's no longer being used, you go to delete, it's going to give you the option of the trash can where you click to remove. And it's going to tell you, are you sure you want to delete this area? And then you do yes if you know that you want to. But just a heads up, be sure to unassign any increment taxing districts within the TIF area through that manage associations process before you try to remove it. Otherwise, you'll get this area that you can't delete a TIF area that has associated increment districts. It's just trying to help you from making the mistake of deleting something you don't really want to delete. So if you know you want to delete an area, go into manage associations first, unassign the increment districts, or if you have deleted those increment districts, then it won't be an issue. But if you have existing increment districts that are still signed, unassign them and then delete the area. Once you have successfully deleted the area, you'll see this green option that tells you that the area has been successfully deleted. So that's sort of the work you would do with existing TIF areas, right? You might edit them. You might work with the associations of that existing area, and that's probably the most common work that you're going to do is, you have amendments to existing areas, you create new tax districts, and then you come in and assign those increment districts to the existing areas. That's probably the most common thing you're going to do. And then you can also delete. So something's run its course, that area is no longer in existence, it's met its time frame, you go in and you delete it. And of course, you can also create a new TIF area. So you have a brand new TIF that's operating in one of your cities, and you go to create a brand new area. So you'd go to TIF areas on the left-hand navigation and select Add TIF Area. The first thing you're going to do then, of course, to add an area is add the area name and number. And it's going to populate for you the next available number. And so that number's populated for you. If you would choose to use a different number, you can use a different 5-digit number if you would so choose. And then you type in the area name, again, using that uniform naming convention, and you do save. And so you had created your new TIF area, right? Well, right now it's just sort of a placeholder. It's an area is really kind of an umbrella in itself. It has no value or no purpose until you assign TIF increment districts to it. So after you create a new TIF area, you need to select it and select the Manage Associations to then associate those TIF increment districts you had created to this new TIF area. So it's very important when you work through your process that you create to make it more flow. You would create your tax districts first, your base and increment tax districts first, before you come in and create a new TIF area. So it's brand new TIF. You created a new base and increment pair or multiples, depending on the situation. And you need to assign those new increment districts to a brand new TIF area that's going on in your county. So you'd pull up your new TIF area that you created, and you'd select that Manage Associations option. And it's a similar process. So we've got this new urban renewal area. You can see there are currently no associated TIF increment districts with it. You go over to the search box, you'd start typing in the name of your increment district you created, and it's going to pull that up for you. You collect the plus sign to add. And then it will tell you that this new taxing district has been assigned to this new TIF area. You take a look at it, everything looks good, and then you close. Consolidating existing TIF areas. So there may be a situation where you have a city that has two TIF areas for whatever reason, and they pass a plan and an ordinance to actually move those areas together and create a new area that's a consolidated area made up of two or more existing TIF areas. So we did create a process to sort of simplify or walk you through the steps of consolidating those areas, right? So you'd go again to your left-hand navigation and bring up the TIF areas option, and you'd go to the option to consolidate TIF areas. So it's going to walk you through a set of different steps to help you combine those existing TIF areas. So the first thing you do is select the TIF areas, and there's a little search button here that you can use to pull up the different areas if you have a lot in your county. Otherwise, they're going to just be populated right here, and you just use your mouse to select which TIF areas you're actually consolidating. So in this case, we're saying we're consolidating a test area with a new TIF project urban renewal. You select those two areas. How are we consolidating them? Are we consolidating them into one of the existing ones, or are we actually creating a new TIF area, which I would recommend? So we're saying we're creating a whole new TIF area made up of these two areas. It's going to populate for you again the next available area number, and you're going to enter the name here. So in this case, the name that we selected was New Consolidated TIF Urban Renewal. So then it's going to ask for you to select the TIF increments for the new Consolidated Urban Renewal. If there were TIF increments already assigned to these two areas, they'd be listed right here. It will also, if you had created new increment districts, so say they were consolidating and then at the same time also amending, so they were adding new tax districts, new area to this urban renewal consolidation, the available TIF increments, anything new that you had created would be here available for you to assign. Again, you'd have the current ones that were assigned to these two areas listed down here. And then you do next. And then it would say delete existing TIFs, which basically here what it means is, we're consolidating, so we want to go ahead and delete out these old TIF area names. So you do finish, and then you can see now that it has consolidated them. It's listing the new consolidated TIF urban renewal and no longer listing the two sort of parts that made up that new consolidated TIF urban renewal. So it walked through the process to combine those for you and save you some steps in the long run. If you have any questions about creating TIF areas or modifying TIF areas, assigning TIF increment districts, anything of that nature, please contact me. I'm happy to assist with that process. Thank you.